our behavioral health team. We work at CBHA, like we've talked to a lot of you about. We're here to treat emotions, behaviors, anything from sleep, even drug abuse. We're here to help that. We have counselors and nurse practitioners like me who you can talk to about and who can help make a plan to treat those things. So what I wanted to talk to you today about is your brain. Introduce you to your brain. It's like a user's guide for your brain. We all have one, but sometimes they're hard to understand. Your brain is amazing, and it has some jobs that you might not know about. Your brain's main job is it has three main jobs, really. Number one, it wants to avoid pain at all costs. Your brain will do anything to avoid pain. It also wants to have fun. It only wants to have fun. It loves the chemicals it gets from doing fun things. And third, it wants to save energy. Those are your brain's three main goals. And because those are the things that your brain is doing, sometimes that goes against what you have planned for your life, right? If your brain's goal is only to avoid pain, to seek fun, and to save energy, it wants you to just stay on your couch, drink sugary drinks, and play video games all day. That's what your brain wants to do. That's what it would feel most comfortable doing. But we know that's not healthy for our body. Sometimes we have to push back against that brain. But every time we push back against those things that our brain wants us to do, we might feel uncomfortable. Our brain will send us a message that this might be dangerous. I don't know about this. Be very careful doing this thing because we might get hurt. And we've all had those feelings. Those feelings come in the form of anxiety. Our brain does anything it can to help us avoid danger and keep us safe. I want to tell you a story about something that happened to me this morning. I was about to pull out of my driveway, and I have a backup camera in my car. My husband, the night before, he taped one of our daughter's little dolls, and it was like one of those dolls that had like marker on its face and crazy hair. He taped that doll to my backup camera. So as soon as I put my car in reverse, on the screen popped up this big face with marker on her face, and what do you think I did? Yes, I screamed. And my heart started beating, and I couldn't catch my breath. It freaked me out. Why did my brain respond like that? It responded like that because it was new. It was something sudden. It was new. I had never seen it before. And your brain needs to give you warnings about things like that. So what my brain was doing was it was telling me, I don't know what's going on here, but you need to get as far away from this situation as possible. It raised my heart rate, so I was ready to run away. It increased my breathing so that I was ready to fight if I needed to. It took all the glucose that was in my muscles or in my blood and sent it to my muscles so that they were ready to either run or fight this thing that it didn't know what it was. After I allowed my brain to catch up and I saw what it was, I was able to tell my brain, oh, okay, I see what happened here. My husband was playing a joke on me. It's just a doll. There's nothing to be afraid of. But that's exactly how anxiety works in our body. Some people come into the clinic and they ask us, do I have anxiety? I wonder if I have anxiety. And the answer is yes. Every human with a brain has anxiety. Anxiety is a wonderful thing that keeps us safe. It gives us warnings about things we've never seen before. It gives us, it helps us save energy. It helps us do the things that our brain wants to do, avoid pain, seek fun, and save energy. So what do we do when those emotions start to rise? Because like I said, just like my brain did when it saw the doll in my backup camera, that wasn't something that was going to hurt me, but my brain didn't care. It perceived it as something dangerous, so it went into the motion of preparing me to either run away or fight. And that can happen to all of us. You might be sitting in a Spanish class and not understand why, but your brain perceives something that's dangerous. And all of a sudden, your heart starts beating fast. You might start breathing heavily and your muscles might start shaking. Your brain is preparing you to run away from a danger. This happens very often, so what do you do about it? Just like I had to remind my brain this morning, okay, where am I? I'm in my car is safe. That's just a silly doll, I've seen it before. My husband's playing a joke on me. That helped my brain understand, okay, I see what's going on here. I see that I'm not in danger, and my body calmed down quite a bit. So that's something that you can do in real time when you start to feel anxious. Remind your body of where you are, and it can be as simple as saying what you see. Look around the room. I see chairs. I see a floor. Reminding your brain of what's familiar to you. I see a friend there. I see my Spanish teacher. I see the notes on the board. These are things that I've seen before, and it reminds our brain that we're not in danger and we can calm down. Another thing our brain tries to do that sometimes interferes with our ability to live a good, productive life is it tries to predict the future. Whenever there's a story in our life that doesn't have an ending, our brain will try to make up an ending. We've probably all been through this. Like, let's say, for example, we like someone, but we're not sure if they like us. So that's a story that doesn't have an ending. We don't know. So then our brain will put in all these scenarios. It'll say, no, he could never like you. He must like someone else. It'll just make 1,000 different scenarios in order to finish the story, because your brain is very uncomfortable with finishing a story that's unfinished. This is also something that our brain has developed in order to keep us safe. It doesn't want to run into new things. So whenever there's a story without an ending, it gets very nervous about that. And sometimes things happen in life that we can't predict. And when we can't predict something, sometimes our brain, out of keeping us safe, tells us to just don't do anything. We've talked about fight and flight, but sometimes our brain, in order to avoid discomfort, tells us to freeze as well. That's another thing. It will tell us to hole up in our room, not talk to anyone. We feel paralyzed, like we don't know what to say next. That's just a way of our brain keeping us safe because it doesn't know the ending to the story. I've talked a lot about anxiety, and this is, again, something that everyone feels. Something that you may or may not know is chemically in our brain, anxiety goes along with depression quite often. I think about it like flipping a coin. Anxiety and depression are like two sides of the same coin. For some people, and this can change, some people flip the coin and it lands depression up and they're feeling sad and blue, but usually anxiety is underneath. Sometimes people flip the coin and anxiety is on the top. They feel anxiety most of the time, but typically depression is underneath as well. So what do we do about this? Anxiety and depression can get us stuck in a cycle of freezing and isolating. And remember, that's where our brain feels the most safe. We have to push back against our brain in order to move forward. There's a difference between anxiety and stress. I'm feeling pretty stressed right now because I'm in front of you, I'm talking to you, and I feel kind of nervous. But the reason that I'm not feeling anxiety and I'm just feeling stress is because I'm engaged. I'm doing something. I'm moving forward. I'm taking that nervous energy that my brain has built up and I'm expressing it in my words and my body language. I'm doing something. That is a really excellent thing to remember. If you're feeling anxious or stressed and depressed as well, your brain will tell you the safest thing is to isolate, to be alone, be by yourself, freeze. But using that anxious energy to engage in the world, to do something, to move forward in some way, gives a place for that energy to go, and it makes it beneficial to us instead of just leaving us stuck. Anxiety can build and depression can build when we become disengaged from the people around us, when we can even become disengaged from our bodies. Has anyone ever had the experience where maybe you started walking home and your mind was somewhere else and you arrived home and you're like, what? How did I get here? I don't even remember my traveling home because your brain was just engaged in something else? That happens quite often. And that's evidence of disengagement between our brain and our body. And that causes our body quite a bit of stress. And when we isolate, when we freeze, our brain and our body become more and more disengaged. So when we think about moving forward, engaging, the first place we could start is connecting our brain and our body. There's lots of ways that we can do that. A really good way is doing something like listening to music and dancing. That is engaging our brain and our body at the same time. And it's a way for our brain and our body to reconnect. Another way is to meditate or breathe deeply. Think about your breathing. Count your breathing. Take deep breaths in and deep breaths out. That is reconnecting your brain and your body in a healthy way. And what that does, it's like you are taking over the controls. Sometimes in our brain's desire to only have fun, only to keep us safe, it says, you know what, I'm going to take over control from here. And I just want you to stay home, not take any risks, only eat junk food and don't talk to anybody. You have to take over those controls. Sometimes I say to myself, I thank my brain for what it's doing. I'll say, I see what you're trying to do, brain. I thank you so much for being there for me. Thanks for keeping me safe. But you know what? I got this from here. I'll show you we're going to be fine. So even though you're afraid to do something, even though you feel anxiety about moving forward, tell your brain thank you for keeping you safe and move forward anyway. And that anxiety will dissipate. It will improve your mood and you will be able to overcome a lot of difficult emotions. Remember that connection between your mind and your body is very important. And by not thinking about that, by going about our day and doing nothing, our brain and our body tend to get more and more disconnected. So do anything you can to reconnect your brain and your body. Move your body in ways that make you happy. Reach out and talk to a friend. Take over control of your breathing. Count your breathing. These are ways that you can connect with your body and move it forward, even though it feels anxious and stuck. I know that a lot of people struggle with these types of feelings. I would love to answer any questions you might have about feelings you've experienced or anxiety in general, depression in general. Does anyone have any? Not everyone all at once. Anyone have any questions about the things that we've talked about today? Yeah, please.
Okay. What are some things that other than just kind of realizing where you're at, what are other things or tactics that help you snap out of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question was, what are some things that you can kind of use to snap yourself out of it when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're feeling big feelings? Is that kind of what you're asking? What are some ways that you can snap out of it? So those ways that we've talked about, moving your body, engaging with friends. Any way that you can engage your senses, sight, smell, hearing, touch, that will increase that mind-body connection. Something that I find really helpful is brushing your teeth or eating a mint. That engages kind of all the senses at once. It's something powerful for your nose, and it involves taste and touch. And it can kind of bring your brain, sometimes your brain gets stuck in these cycles. And that's something that can kind of bring your brain back to reality, back to that mind-body connection. If you are having trouble using the coping skills that you typically use to overcome your depression or anxiety, that would be a great time to reach out to someone for help. Like we said, everyone has anxiety. Most people experience periods of depression. And a lot of times people ask me, what is the point where I should ask for help, where I should make an appointment to come talk to somebody? And my answer to that is, whenever it gets so big, you can't reach for those tools. Those tools that you usually put in place to help yourself feel better seem out of reach. When it gets to that point, please reach out to us and we can help make a plan for getting you a little bit closer to reaching those tools. Thank you so much for inviting me to talk today. I've really enjoyed it. Please come find me and ask me a question privately if you need to.